program.
People have lost homes, they've lost all their belongings, so shelter will be an urgent need. Food, of course.
A missing masterpiece has been returned. Correspondent Vicki Barker is at the foreign desk. 3 years after the early Van Gogh landscape was stolen from this museum south of Amsterdam, it came back, bubble wrapped inside a blue IKEA bag. Handed over to art detective Arthur Brand.
It's back.
He's not naming the tipster. The Dow is up 56 points. This is CBS News.
When you think of hiring, think of Indeed. Their end-to-end hiring system helps you attract, interview, and hire candidates all in the same place. Visit Indeed.com/credit.
With news on WAUK The Shaw, I'm Stuart J. Waddles. What to do with the domes? Milwaukee County supervisors are expressing concern about the costs of fixing up the Mitchell Park domes. Recent options given to leaders include a $67 million complete restoration of all of the domes. There's a $22 million option for simple repairs and a $5 million option to demolish them. One county board supervisor says that the high costs of repair or reconstruction may lead to the eventual decision to demolish them. Payments made to Waukesha Metro can now come from your phone. The transit system has launched a new fare collection system called Wisco. It offers multiple payment options, including credit cards, debit cards, Apple Pay, and Google Pay. The new system provides smoother transfers to regional transit options like the Milwaukee County Transit System. With news on WAUK The Shaw, I'm Stuart J. Waddles.
Red Delicious, Honeycrisp, Granny Smith. If you have a favorite apple, now is the time to pick it straight from the source. Did you know Wisconsin has more than 300 apple orchards? Travel Wisconsin recently naming its favorites, including the Oneida National Apple Orchard outside Green Bay, Ferguson's Orchards in Eau Claire, and Apple Holler south of Racine. Many provide tons of family fun in the fall, too. Tire swings, lawn bowling, hay rides, and more. Apple experts suggest if you want to pick yours fresh, do it before the end of October. For Civic Media, Ontario.
Why are interscholastic sports called the last classroom of the day? Because they teach students important life lessons like teamwork, accountability, and perseverance. School sports are so much more than a game. They're about developing the whole person. That's why they're an essential part of every student's education.
Encourage your student to participate in the last classroom of the day. Interscholastic sports in Wisconsin. This message presented by the WIAA and the Wisconsin Athletic Directors Association. If you love them enough to listen to them practice the same song on tuba,
please be done.
Over and over and over and over and over, then surely you'll check NHTSA.gov/the right seat to make sure they're correctly buckled in the back seat.
Sounds good, honey.
Check today at NHTSA.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
It's never personal, only politics. The Devil's Advocates Radio Show with Dom and Cruz. Weekdays from 4 until 6 on your local.
Who's the most fun to drink with of the Republican lawmakers? Todd Alba did decide to text us who's fun to get a drink with in the GOP.
Fantastic.
Todd also confirmed that Robin Voss has virtually no sense of humor.
Moving Wisconsin forward, one joke at a time. This is Kristen Bry with As Goes Wisconsin.
Yada, yada, yada. Hello, Wisconsin! Hello, Wisconsin. Welcome to hell froze over, potentially, last night. And I am excited to talk about it. And I'm going to try to talk about it objectively and thoughtfully because I was challenged to do so on Twitter last night. So I will get to that story in just a second. But good morning, Jane Matnair, and good morning, Mr. Greg Bach. How are you both doing?
Hello. I'm
So we
doing
were
well. The three of us are back together.
the three of us, the band is back together. We were very excited. We get to do this next week, Wednesday, and then Greg, I think you should come on Friday as we get a little taste of maybe you can jump on the producer board on my last day, and Jane can be
Ooh, I like
co-host, so we
that.
can see a little of
Ooh.
what the change up is going to feel like come September
Preview.
25th.
Yeah.
Oh my good. It's getting so close.
It's getting
really
very
is.
close. I got an updated picture of her yesterday, so that was very excited. She's 6.5 pounds, and
Wow.
so she's healthy. Everything's
Nice.
looking good. She's moving a
Good.
lot,
Is she?
and yeah, so we're pretty excited. But today is going to be super fun. Like I said, we're going to start with I think some overshadowing news that maybe even over, at least in Wisconsin, feels like it overshadows McCarthy's decision to investigate President Biden, but we are going to get to that as well. And then at the top of the 11 o'clock hour, Alan Borsuk is back, Marquette Fellow and longtime veteran education reporter, to talk about some of the shining examples of schools that are doing really well in Milwaukee and what they have in common. And then to round out the show, what is the worst TV decisions you can remember? And whether that's bad business decisions, whether that's shows getting canceled, like what can you think of as a really bad TV decision? So we're going to be taking your calls on that. We have some of our own thoughts on that. But to start the show, yesterday, after weeks of talk of impeachment, I spent yesterday afternoon working on a TikTok trying to get people to be excited about the fact that we need to defend justice and go to defendjustice.com and be able to call your reps and trying to talk about getting the pressure campaign going. But the fact that then at that evening, I checked Twitter and lo and behold, I about swallowed my tongue when I read Voss backs turning over drawing of election maps to nonpartisan agency bid to bypass lawsuits. And I could not believe it. And so I am a little I had to go read it, but it was at night, so I was trying to get as much information as possible. Okay.
Yes, we are working on some technical issues, Kristen Bry. Kristen is at home today, and apparently we cannot hear you on the air, which is odd because Greg and I can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you.
And
we are going to be working on it right now.
Yes, we are attempting to efforting a solution. So I'm assuming everything on your end is the same as it was yesterday. Yes.
Is exactly the same. And I can hear you guys perfectly. I can hear myself. I can see people. I'm not getting any comments on the live stream saying that they're having problems hearing us. So
it's on the radio itself, we cannot hear you, which the radio.
Our engineering team is on the way and should be here in about 10 minutes.
So do you guys, do you two want to talk about your thoughts on the redistricting case so people can actually hear you two?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like when I saw it, like when I saw that Robin Voss volunteered the idea and I posted this as a response to you, Kristen, on Twitter, I just thought of that scene from Star Wars where he's like, it's a trap. This isn't real. This isn't right. Like this can't be a thing that's going to happen. I'm like, he just woke up one day. He was visited by 3 ghosts. And he's had a change of heart. It's absolutely, yeah. But it looks like you're back. Someone said it's back.
Is it back?
I don't know because I can hear you.
Well, maybe they thought it was back because you're now talking and they can hear you, but unclear if they can hear me when they're listening to the radio. And so this is we are doing we're trying to revamp the studio. And so I think there were some things that were changed around, but the studio itself is not done. So that's why I thought we could just do it from home today, which is why I'm
Why you're
here, and I
guess
don't know
what?
who can hear me. So it's fun to.
Just start saying everything you feel about anybody you've ever met in your entire
No, I
life right
don't.
now.
Well, it's also because I worked really hard on trying to understand everything that was going on with the redistricting case, trying to, like I said, to be objective about it. And so now it just feels like I can I'll save it for later.
I
Well,
mean, yeah,
apparently, Sarah just checked in and she said, I can hear you on the live stream fine.
Yeah, it seems like it's probably something as far as the whichever mic is connected to the guest going out to the radio potentially. Because yeah, I mean, I think we have not at least we have. I can see people are watching the live stream. We haven't lost many people yet. But
it says
trying to
that
see.
I'm sorry, go on.
No, go.
It says that someone said it sounds like you're in the other room right now, and Jane and I are on the radio. So, for all those texting, for all those who are wondering, we are working on it right now. We are aware of it right now. Exclamation points not necessary.
And going back to our favorite Chucklemeister, if I may, just for a moment, Robin Voss. I agreed with Greg in that it's a trick. It's a trick. And he actually started feeling heat for something that he did. So this is a last minute ditch to try and avoid this case going to the Supreme Court. And then I also have to believe that there is a delay factor as well. So we'll get into this a little bit more, but it's about delay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yes, I would imagine that it has to do with being delayed and the fact that the pressure campaign was working and that people were calling. And I certainly was impressed with the amount of comments I got from the video I posted yesterday of people saying, I've been emailing every day. I've been calling every day.
Great.
Supposedly, it was funny. Yes. And so that has been very encouraging as far as that goes. And I have to imagine that people are feeling the Republicans are feeling the pressure of this, and so they can't decide that which way to go forward. So Price just weighed in saying he can hear us on the live stream, but not on the Civic Media app. So I'm going to let you guys keep talking because then it's
Okay.
not dead air on the app until we figure out what's going on.
Sounds good. Yeah, I mean, the developments are going to be interesting to see, and I think that I feel like there's just a card up his sleeve.
Oh, always.
Because that's just how Robin Voss cannot be like. It seems too good to be true. Absolutely too good to be true.
Oh, for sure. That all of a sudden, you know what? We were all wrong.
We were wrong for everything.
Both sides were wrong, and now we're gonna come together and do the right thing,
holding hands.
Yes, and singing "Kumbaya." It's just laughable.
I bought Judge Janet a cake. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So it will remain really interesting. And the other thing too, because he kept referring to the Iowa decision, and because they have done this in Iowa, they had a nonpartisan commission, from what I understand, draw up the maps, and the legislature can still override those maps.
Yes, absolutely. If they do not like it, the legislature can just come and be like, that was a noble attempt. Very, very good job. We're going to do it ourselves and then they'll plaster it as, well, we weren't able to come to a decision. No matter what happens.
Exactly.
We were not able to come to a decision. And that will be the noble attempt on their end. And then they can wash their hands and be like, hey, we tried.
Exactly.
We tried.
Look, see, we actually did something. We came up, we stepped up, we were willing to compromise. And that's all I'm seeing now too on some social media is, well, wait, the Democrats have been screaming about fair maps, and now the Republicans are like, well, we'll do that. And now you're saying no.
Yeah.
Come on.
And that's going to be the other thing that people will say is something like, well, the Democrats didn't want to the Democrats didn't want to help us in this.
Right.
So we had to do it all on our own. Because we care about democracy, because I'm Robin Voss, and there's two things I love: popcorn and democracy. The order of that fluctuates, depends on the day.
It changes. It changes a little bit. Sarah checking in on the live stream. The only time Voss can be trusted is when it's in his own self-interest.
Absolutely.
And I don't think that's wrong.
And that's what he spent a career doing, is making everything his own interest. Is self-interest always, whether it's property, whether it's popcorn, whether it's government, whether it's holding on to his district with, what was it, 16,000 votes? I mean, it's just absolute madness.
And so the idea that he's actually coming forward in good faith to do this is pretty funny. It really is.
Yeah, I didn't trust it from the moment. I had a moment of shock. My jaw dropped, and I was like, yeah, okay, right.
Oh, yeah, right. Sure you did. Well, I do think that it's really impressive how people responded and actually did something.
Yeah.
And called and emailed. And it should be nothing if not a little reassuring that it works.
We see this in the election cycles. We see this happening with, when we make the case and we make it known that this is dire, people show up to the polls, they call the representatives, they write letters, they do what's necessary, and hopefully, fingers crossed, we move towards something better.
That's the hope. All right, we are going to break. Come back with us on the other side. Kristen could maybe be back. And if not, Greg and I will be here. This is Ask Goes Wisconsin of the Civic Media Network.
Problems. I wage my war on the inside. I take my gun to the enemy side. I've been asking.
Offering 50% off windshield replacement. Call your local auto glass now today for full details.
More than 80 million Americans depend on AM radio each month for news, weather, and emergency information. A new bill in Congress would make sure AM radio remains in cars, because when cell and internet services are down, this free service could be your only lifeline. Text AM to 52886 and tell Congress to support the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act.
Message and data rates may apply. You may receive up to 4 messages a month, and you may text STOP to stop.
This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
Love your hometown? Don't miss the Devil's Advocates radio show, on the road for the very first Fall in Love Hometown Tour 2023.
But we're coming to a town near you, all across the state of Wisconsin.
Mike and Dom kicking it all off in Wausau this Thursday, starting at 4 p.m. Live from Bull Falls Radio, WXCO 1230 AM, 98.9 FM.
Road trip with the Devil's Advocates Fall in Love Hometown Tour 2023 on your local Civic Media radio station and the app.
Fear you may be missing out? We're always streaming on TuneIn and the Civic Media app. Enjoy listening live or catch up by finding the podcast at civicmedia.us or wherever you enjoy listening to your podcasts.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. Daytime highs approaching 64 this afternoon under mainly cloudy skies. Winds out of the northeast, 5 to 10 miles an hour. Lows dip down to about 47 tonight, partly cloudy. High of 69 tomorrow, mainly sunny skies and calm. Mainly clear skies Friday with a high of 76. 70 chance for scattered storms Saturday. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Eric Height. Currently, it's 55.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. Kristen Bry, I can see her.
I'm here.
You just can't hear her.
I did show up for work.
There. Oh, there you are. Yeah, we're having some technical issues. Engineering is on the way. They are doing a major overhaul of our studios, and so there's lots of pieces.
Lots of pieces
involved. Yes, and apparently there was some falling of ceiling last night.
Oh,
and,
that's exciting.
Band-Aids were involved. And
Corey Harmon says she's on. You're
I'm on.
We
Great.
did it. I sat here and I just kept my fingers crossed for technology. You know what, guys? You got this. I'm gonna be out of here. I'm out of here. See, have a good show.
So let's just pretend that this is the start of the show. How about that? Jane,
That works.
Greg, how are you doing this morning?
We are so glad to hear you. We're so glad to hear you.
That's so wonderful. So, did you hear about yesterday and Robin
No.
Voss changing his mind about
What?
nonpartisan maps?
What did Robin say?
Who's Robin Voss?
He's my favorite Chucklemeister.
Actually, a funny story about who is Robin Voss. I had a family member who does not live in Wisconsin and does not follow politics as much, but saw the video that I had made yesterday and said, my biggest takeaway was that I was surprised to find out that Robin Voss is not a woman. Just here, because I didn't put a picture of him up.
Also, Robin Voss is trending on Twitter right now, and that can't be good.
So let's start at the beginning, because I did I wanted to break this down because I feel like this is confusing and there is so many moving parts to both the impeachment stuff, to the Megan Wolf stuff. Like there's constantly things happening. And so with this new change, I want to be objective because honestly, when we talk about Iowa style maps, this has been a gold standard for a very long time when we talk about redistricting. And I don't want to just immediately be partisan and say, like, this is a trap. So let's try to actually break this down of what happened yesterday. What is the Iowa style system? What's in this bill? And then I have some red flags. So we're not going to get it all to in this segment, but in this hour, that's kind of what I wanted to go. So yesterday, after this has been weeks of impeachment talk, Robin Voss and the Republicans in the Assembly hold a press conference, and they announce that on Thursday, so tomorrow, the Assembly is going to consider a new redistricting plan, not maps, but a plan. And this is without a hearing, without a vote. This is fast. And the plan is going to be similar to what Iowa does when it draws their maps. So the question is, what is the Iowa system? So since 1980, they've used an independent commission to draw the maps, and it's a model for other states that have started to adopt this. However, in the nonpartisan in that system, they're still voted on, even when who draws the map is nonpartisan, but who votes on the maps to accept those maps is the legislature. So they're still approved by and voted on by the legislature. So under this plan, this is basically avoiding the lawsuits going forward, because if the lawsuits go forward, as far as I understand, the justices get to pick the maps. In the same way that what happened this last time around, there was multiple maps in the lawsuits for the maps that were decided on in 2022. Originally, if you guys remember, because where Hagedorn ended up voting, they chose Governor Evers' maps because the criteria that was put forward was least change. And according to that criteria, Governor Evers' maps was the least change. That got challenged, went to the U.S. Supreme Court, came back, ran out of time, and then Hagedorn switched and voted for the even more gerrymandered Republican-drawn maps. So in this lawsuit case, basically the justices could be the final decision on maps of what's chosen. So this is their attempt, there being Robin Voss and the Republicans, to not let the justices, the liberal majority justices, pick the maps if these lawsuits move forward.
Right.
But it still gives them the power, unless there's an amendment to the bill as it has been proposed and is being rushed through, to have them still be able to vote or amend what gets drawn by a nonpartisan independent committee. Questions?
Will there be a quiz? I mean,
but it's complicated, right? Like
it's very complicated, very convoluted. There's so much nuance involved in this.
And so that's the thing, when you see the headline that came out, is like all of a sudden Robin Voss is in favor and wants nonpartisan maps. And it becomes this very easy thing. Like, well, you guys have said you've wanted nonpartisan maps forever. How are you against this now? Because Tony Evers, the next step after they had this press conference, Governor Tony Evers immediately was like, it's an immediate no. It's a no for me, dog. and
Nah.
put out a statement basically saying he did not trust Republicans to engage in this process. And so I don't think this will move forward, but it's interesting as far as the politics that are at play. And I would say, as far as trying to look at this like objectively, I have some red flags. If you have some red flags, Greg, Jane, people who can finally hear me at home, 844-967-2789. I would love to hear if you've managed to read any of the articles or peruse Twitter or try to wrap your head around this fairly complicated scenario that we find ourselves in. Are you for it? Do you think the Iowa style scenario would be good for us? Is it is that a step forward? Is that bipartisanship? Or are there also some red flags that you're seeing that you would be like, maybe not? 844-967-2789. That's 844-96-PARTY. So happy everyone can hear me. So happy to be here. Happy hump day. Let's keep it rolling. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Your home of the Earl Ingram Show. Weekday mornings from 8 till 10 on The Shaw. 540 AM and 101.1 FM WAUK.
CBS News special report.
Our nightmare is finally over and the good guys won.
Chester County, Pennsylvania District Attorney Deb Ryan after police took convicted killer Danilo Cavalcante into custody 13 days after he crab walked up the walls to escape from the county jail. State Police Lieutenant Colonel George Bivens says DEA officers searched with thermal imaging.
There was an aircraft overhead utilizing FLIR technology, picked up a heat signal that they began to track.
Officers paused their search briefly because of a storm. Then
tactical teams converged on the area where the heat source was. They were able to move in very quietly. They had the element of surprise. Cavalcante did not realize he was surrounded until that had occurred.
He says Cavalcante tried to crawl away. A police dog helped subdue him. No injuries, no shots fired during the capture. A swarm of officers posed for pictures with a handcuffed Cavalcante when it was all over. CBS News special report. I'm Deborah Rodriguez.
The Civic Media Network of radio stations across Wisconsin. We are your hometown radio, refreshed.
With news on WAUK The Shaw, I'm Stuart J. Waddles. If the Big Bend police change fully goes through, the Waukesha County Sheriff's Department would set up an office in the Village Hall.
Big Bend leaders have taken steps to disband its police force, transferring law enforcement responsibilities to the Waukesha County Sheriff's Department. A proposed contract says that sheriff's deputies may set up an office in Big Bend's police headquarters. The decision was made during the Big Bend Village Board's meeting last week, with the details of the proposal discussed in a closed session, citing police services. For Civic Media News, I'm James Kelly.
The renovation of the Waukesha County Courthouse is underway, with County Executive Paul Farrow commencing the project with the first sledgehammer strike. The courthouse is undergoing an extensive overhaul, including improvements to courtrooms and various offices. There's a $115 million budget and a time frame of 2 to 3 years. With news on WAUK The Shaw, I'm Stuart J. Waddles.
The Cripes Cast with Charlie Behrens.
Today, I am talking to the owner of Funky Fresh Spring Rolls, my friend Truman McGee. From an environmentally friendly perspective, the fact that it's frozen means that it's not going to waste.
I am a serial strawberry abuser. If you're a fruit and you're watching this, stay away from me, okay? Do not jump in my shopping cart because I will let you die.
Cripes Cast every Saturday and Sunday at noon across Civic Media and on the Civic Media app.
If I could be you.
And you could be me for just 1 hour.
If you could find a way.
To get inside each other's mind.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
We've all felt left out.
And for some, that feeling lasts more than a moment. We can change that. Learn how at belongingbeginswithus.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Walk a mile in my shoes.
Think you'd like working with us at Civic Media? We're having fun and moving fast to preserve hometown radio across Wisconsin. If you have the right skills to join our team, let's talk. Civic Media is a proud equal opportunity employer committed to diversity and inclusion, along with the growth and development of all current and future employees. If you're interested or are part of an organization who wants to know more, go to our website, civicmedia.us, and click on the Careers tab. Missed your favorite show live on air? It's easy to find what you enjoy wherever you listen to podcasts, including Spotify, Apple, and
announcing a Republican proposal to draw new legislative maps ahead of the 2024 election.
We can both admit that maybe we were wrong, and now we have to stand up and say this is a better process going forward.
Republicans who have opposed such an idea for years now preparing to vote Thursday on a bill that would direct a nonpartisan state agency to draw new lines, a move meant to squash lawsuits headed to the state Supreme Court, which holds a new liberal majority. Do you see this as a better outcome for Republicans than what the Supreme Court may decide?
Not necessarily. I mean, we have no idea. I'm still optimistic that the maps that we have are totally legit. I think Justice Protasewicz should recuse herself because she has biased herself in the process.
We both can admit that we were wrong.
Yeah.
But you're wronger.
Yeah. No.
Oh, welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. I am Kristen Bry. Jane Matnair is on the board. Greg Bach is here because it's Wednesday, and we are talking about the about face that Wisconsin Assembly Republicans have apparently had when it comes to a nonpartisan redistricting committee and letting them draw the maps in an Iowa-style change up to what they've been opposed to for years. And I'll tell this story because I know we have a call, but I tweeted this out. I think I retweeted that this is different. And there is a certain account that is a anonymous but active conservative Twitter account that it's Milwaukee Journal Sentinel Opinions (parody), and they responded to me and said, "I want to see a TikTok video that's actually fair about this. I'll be watching diligently."
Meow.
And so I just responded to them as like, "So you're saying you watch my TikToks?" and he said, "I am saying that. I get frustrated watching them though." And I wanted to write, "I get frustrated making them." So same. But in my attempt to think about this objectively, I wanted to present these instead of immediately pooping all over this idea. I wanted to say something else. I do have 4 red flags to me that I think should be at least addressed. But before we do that, I want to see, do you have any red flags? Do you like this idea? Do you think this is an actual opportunity for a bipartisan agreement and we can move forward and sing Kumbaya? I would love to hear from you. 844-967-2789. That's 844-96-PARTY. And we have Eric on the phone. Eric, is this the bipartisan agreement we've all been waiting for?
I'm not sure. My understanding of what they do in Iowa, what's presented to the legislature, cannot be amended. It has to be either approved or disapproved, but they can't amend it. If what Robin Voss is proposing can be amended, then it doesn't help at all, because they can just, they could just skip the whole process and amend it to whatever they wanted to amend it to. But if it couldn't be amended and it was the same thing they were doing in Iowa, I think it would be great.
So I think that, thanks for the call, Eric. And so that was my first red flag, because apparently in the bill that was proposed as written, the legislature can not only reject the maps drawn by the nonpartisan body, but it can change them however they want. And so he was willing, and I will say again, because we're trying to do this objectively, as people started to raise that argument yesterday, saying not only could you amend by the third go around from the nonpartisan body, the legislature could then amend the maps. They could also just not approve the maps, and we're just stuck with the maps that we have. And so as that objection was raised yesterday, Robin Vos retweeted Governor Evers' tweet and said, actually, I'm willing to offer an amendment to address this concern if you will sign it. Let's not play games and get this done. The Iowa process works well, as you have said for years. Again, I am trying to be objective.
Yep.
I'm answering the call and the request.
Robin Vos said, let's not play games. Come on.
I love watching this, the battle between the jaded and the hopeful. Who will win?
The fact that they're going to vote on this tomorrow is a game.
So that is my red flag number 2. Red flag number 2 to me is the very rushed nature of this. So the fact that this would not get a public hearing is a giant red flag. The fact that this bill was drafted at 3 a.m. on Tuesday morning is a giant red flag. The fact that they want to vote on it tomorrow is really rushed, because when you think, he hasn't even said he has the support of Senate Republicans yet. Like, this is just the assembly moving forward and not something that they have even talked about with the caucus with Devin LeMahieu. And I haven't heard anything publicly from Senate Republicans yet.
But isn't it just assumed that, of course, they're going to do whatever Robin Vos wants?
I mean,
in the Senate? Oh, no.
Yeah.
The Senate, no, Devin LeMahieu and Robin Vos do not necessarily get along.
Oh.
There's a great picture of them together sitting in the legislature. Neither one look happy to be next to each other.
Yeah, there's not like lockstep coordination. I mean, think about what over the summer when they were talking about the abortion bill, because Robin Vos did the same thing where he proposed, the Assembly Republicans proposed a abortion bill with exceptions in it for both rape and incest. And the Senate Republicans were like, we're not on board with this. And so there was no coordination between those two. So ultimately, I think what isn't a red flag is that if you're going to do independent redistricting, like, it requires transparency, it requires public input. It does not require less than 48 hours for a turnaround time to get a bill pushed through. And then claim look at what we're doing now. We're all on board now. And so that is my red flag number 2. But I want to hear your red flags, or tell me that I'm wrong. Tell me that there's nothing to worry about. 844-967-2789. Let's go to Price on the phone.
Hey there.
Go ahead.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
We can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay. Just making sure. Anyway, right. So there's a couple red flags for me. Obviously, the number one is Vos proposed it. The other one is that he says to Evers, yeah, I'll write the amendment. You just sign it. Come on. Let's be real here. And the third was just going through Twitter yesterday. There's some guy named Ron Tussler that I hadn't heard of, but he's in the assembly from Harrison. And he puts up this huge announcement that we've got this new plan and we're going to work together and everything. And his body language and his face is so just full of it. It's completely a work, and just shows that you just can't trust them. And I don't trust it. And I would have to see everything written out of what they want. And that's all I got. But it's a complete work, and I don't trust them at all.
Thanks so much for the call, Price. And I actually have that tweet and that video from State Representative Ron Tussler. He put out the first tweet saying, huge announcement. We heard your thoughts on the redistricting process in Wisconsin, and it's time for a change. Wisconsin Republicans will introduce a nonpartisan redistricting plan based off the Iowa model. This plan has been hailed as the gold standard redistricting model for Democrats and Republicans alike. Republicans, Democrats, and the governor pushed this plan last time redistricting happened in 2020. And he has a video, his corresponding video, as Price said, but then a conservative anonymous account responded to him, to Representative Tussler, saying, you're getting rolled. And his response, State Representative Ron Tussler's response was, perhaps, why do you think we are all of a sudden in favor of something that we were against?
Ooh.
It's like, were you supposed to admit that publicly?
They keep saying real things out loud.
Yeah.
That's really gonna trip them up.
And but this is, to be fair, this is what a pressure campaign is supposed to do, right? This is what calling and saying, we do not want you to impeach Janet Protasewicz. We do not want you to overturn this election. We want 73, the percent of people who want a nonpartisan redistricting independent committee to be drawing the maps. Like, this is what we've been saying that we wanted. We wanted accountability. We wanted representatives who were actually listening. If this is how we get there because they're scared that this is a better scenario to follow through with this, then let it go through the courts. But like, at least they're listening and at least they're responding, because we so often are talking about how the fact is, because of the gerrymander, they don't have to respond.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was, I got a response yesterday saying, newly elected State Senator Dan Knodel, who basically ran on considering impeachment since he would be the vote for a supermajority in the state Senate, who only won by less than 1%, is sending fairly snarky responses to his constituents who are saying they're concerned with the impeachment. And I was like, that is interesting, because you did not win by very much to not be listening to the people who got you, who you represent.
Yeah, you don't wield that. You don't have Robin Voss power.
Do we have any examples? I would love to hear some of his snark.
I will have to look that up. So while I'm looking that up, let's take Mark from the SAC.
Go ahead, Mark.
Hi, guys. Yeah, hi. I'll point out that the current maps certainly don't meet this standard, but as our Constitution says, the maps would still have to meet constitutional muster, regardless of if we have the Iowa model on, and be bounded by, I'm reading this directly from statute, by county, precinct, town, or ward lines, and to consist of contiguous territory and be as compact a form as practicable. They'd still have to meet that standard. And unless they do that, I mean, that I wouldn't trust, as I said, I wouldn't trust Ron Voss as far as I could heave him, or even if I could heave him with one of Mel Brooks's catapults from History of the World Part 1. Where
deep cut, Mark, deep cut.
Where the king was, doing his little skeet to shoot, but it is just ridiculous that we would trust Robin Voss, because I saw today a little article that apparently he's requesting a little 3-judge panel of former justices to decide what recusal rules or not, and it just is, or impeachment rules or not, and it's just Robin Voss is scurrying for cover now, like the little rat he is, and that and Dan Knodel is lucky he's not my representative, because I have some rather salty comments I'd be making to him that, and I know some good ones without making any threats, like, some people on his side are actually akin to doing that. I know interesting ways of questioning a man's manhood that he probably wouldn't be too fond of.
Okay, Mark.
Mark is spicy today.
Spicy, salty Mark today.
Well,
thanks for the call, Mark. So this, I do have the email from, I will not say who it was forwarded to me.
Okay.
But constituent, thank you for contacting Senator Knodel regarding impeaching Justice Protasewicz. Impeachment proceedings start in the Assembly, not the Senate. Therefore, Senator Knodel has no authority to initiate the process. For a different perspective, former Governor Scott Walker released an opinion the other day. You can read it here. And they linked to the Washington Times on an opinion piece, because Scott Walker still has something to say, and I guess as authority over this, that people should be considering his opinion when talking about impeachment proceedings. I hope you find this information helpful. I will make sure to pass along your comments to Senator Knodel. Thank you for your advocacy, William Neville.
Wow.
William Neville.
But again, Senator Knodel, he basically ran on this, saying that he would, before either of them had been elected, talking about how he would heavily, very seriously consider impeaching her, despite the fact she hadn't been elected, and despite the fact he hadn't been elected.
Yeah. Well, they can, but see, that's where the wonderful part is, if you're a Republican, is you get to do all the things that the other side that you decide can't do. They get to say their opinions on things before they've happened, but no one else on the other side can do that. And by the way, if Robin Voss wants to put together this panel of former judges, I'm sure Michael Gableman is available. We can pay him a couple more $1 million.
I do love that part as well, because one of the quotes from the press conference yesterday from Robin Voss was, hopefully it means that we will take all of the money that has been wasted by the liberal interests suing us over maps, and instead we get to say we don't need to waste those taxpayer dollars because we can adapt the process that has been used flawless wirelessly in Iowa. I don't know what that means. Because that's who's wasting money on lawsuits is the liberals. All right, we'll keep this going after break. 844-967-2789. What red flags do you see in this plan? This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Got a million ways to say another crazy day.
Sometimes I just cannot believe all the storms we've gone through here. I can only hope that we'll be able to leave this house to you one day, baby. You're our legacy.
Planning for these disasters will make sure we're safe, and is the best way to protect that legacy.
Protect your legacy. Visit ready.gov/plan for the tools and tips you need to start your emergency preparedness plan today. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Up North News Radio with Pat Kreitlow.
Yeah. Todd Alba would normally be sharing his dulcet tones with us, but you'll recall that last week, Todd was having issues with the cable company, with an internet connection. I'm now thinking, Todd Alba, did you break Spectrum? Are you responsible for this ESPN mess?
I seem to have broke everything else, so it wouldn't surprise me, no.
Up North News Radio with Pat Kreitlow, weekday mornings 6 till 8 on your local Civic Media radio station and on the app.
Adopt US Kids presents What to Expect When You're Expecting a Teenager. Learning the lingo.
Jelly. Jelly adjective. Jelly is a shorter, better way to say jealous. As in, Chloe, I am like so jelly of your unicorn phone case.
You don't have to speak teen to be a perfect parent. Thousands of teens in foster care will love you just the same. Visit adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, Adopt US Kids, and the Ad Council.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. A blend of clouds and sun this afternoon with highs around 64. Northeasterly winds 5 to 10 miles an hour. Partly cloudy skies again tonight. Lows dip down to about 47. Mainly clear tomorrow, high of 69. Mainly clear Friday with highs around 76. 70 chance for scattered storms Saturday. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Derek Height. Currently, it's
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. I am Kristen Bry, along with Jane Matnair on the board and Greg Bach co-hosting with me today. And we are wrapping up our conversation around the 180 that Assembly Republicans in the Wisconsin legislature have apparently had a change of mind, a change of heart on who should draw the maps. And they would like a nonpartisan body to draw them instead of the justices ruling on them. And so I had some red flags that I was trying to offer, as I would love to hear the objection handling to these red flags, and still taking any of your texts and calls 844-967-2789 as far as how you understand what this proposal could mean. But any final thoughts from you, Greg or Jane?
Well, can I just say, I am so impressed by the Republicans' dedication to doing something that they love meeting in the middle of the night. They just love meeting when no one's around and there's no press and no one can see what they're doing. And it just instills me with so much confidence and trust.
Kristen, I think what Jane said was sarcasm.
It sounded, I mean, we're not in the same room like you
Yeah.
two are, but it did sound a
It's on
little
the desk.
sarcastic.
It's on the
It did
the
sound-
sarcasm's on the desk right now. It's just everywhere.
We have a text from the 262. I think that Robin Voss has earned our complete trust. No doubt he's working for totally fair maps in this time around. Scooter in Wauwatosa. And John from Menominee Falls, dear sweet John. Once again, Robin Voss is playing the role of the scorpion on the back of the frog. Give him another chance and he will stab you in the back again. He can't help it. It's just in his nature.
Dang.
Yeah. And it's, you know, we are getting to the point where it's like, how do we ever move forward? The trust is so broken. The trust is so broken on what's been going on between the 7 justices on the court right now. The trust is so broken between Robin Voss and Governor Evers. Like, I don't know how we move forward. And I mean, the same thing goes for the tit for tat that's going on in the US Congress and
Right.
everything
Mhm.
federally right now, as far as those impeachments. Like, it is exhausting to keep up with. It is exhausting to try to understand what is politics and what is truth, when I think many of us just want a functioning government.
Yep.
Like, doesn't that sound nice?
Where they actually, I don't know, do things for their constituents and respond to the things that their constituents have told them repeatedly that they want.
I'm
That
even
they
down
care
for
about.
like the old Hollywood adage, one for the studio, one for myself. Hey, if you pass a bill that helps us, pass a bill that helps you. I'll lower the bar that far down at this point. But when we can't even listen to a politician give an idea before he finishes the first sentence, we're like, nah, it's not right. That's not going to happen. I mean, that is a problem.
Well, I mean, because that's the thing, you know, what totally got overshadowed is that yesterday the assembly also passed their tax cuts. No, I mean, none of us are talking about that today. One, because it still has to go through the Senate, and two, because Tony Evers has already said, I'm going to veto this. And it goes forward to next week when there's going to be the special session that no doubt the Republicans are just going to gavel in and gavel out like they normally do. But it is the continuous, like, revolving door of this is a non-starter. This is a non-starter. This is a non-starter because of which side proposed that plan.
And that's the other thing. That's the other thing too. They're just sneaking the tax cuts in with all this window dressing, and we're like, when did, like, in 6 months, people are like, when did that happen? While they were talking about maps and impeachment.
Mm-hmm.
That's how they do it every time.
All right, well, let's go to the phones. Cindy from Appleton, thoughts on the new announcement of potential nonpartisan redistricting?
Well, talk is cheap, but I would just like to say, what scam are they going to replace this scam with?
What do you mean?
Well, meaning they're doing this, but they've got something else they're planning up their sleeves that will be just as evil. So I don't put stock in anything they say anymore. I will say I will believe it when I see it.
You mean, Cindy, you're not reassured by the fact that they hold meetings in the middle of the night at 3 o'clock in the morning and do things that are solely for the benefit of their constituents?
Do I look like I just fell off the turnip truck?
I feel like Cindy and Jane would get along if they ever went out for a drink together.
We can have a sarcasm contest, Cindy. It'll be great.
Here you go.
Thank you for calling.
Thanks for calling, Cindy. So yeah, I would say the only other red flags I had with this, my red flag number 3 was it's a bill that's being advanced without any support or input from Democratic lawmakers. And finally, it's just the timing. It's like, this is very convenient that now this is when they have a change of heart. When, like I said, the pressure campaign that was started last week, that people are calling, people are texting, and I am sure there is enough happening in the backdoor talks or the backroom talks, basically being like, I can't do this. Like, I can't vote to impeach her. This is wildly unpopular. There's a lot that I will go along with, but I'm not going along with this. And so they have to reverse course.
And and we were talking about this a little bit earlier, it makes me really proud of folks
Oh,
that
yeah.
they got involved and they stepped up and they emailed and they called. I want to have a big group Wisconsinite hug because we did it.
Did you hear that, folks? Jane wants to
Well,
hug you.
He has not taken Robin Voss has not officially taken impeachment off of the range
Understood.
of possibility right now. But
We know
yes,
we know people will mobilize.
He's eased his rhetoric on the topic. But so this is something we will certainly keep like measuring the pulse on, because this is pretty important and pretty interesting to see where it goes from here. But how did I do on my objectivity?
You did great.
I thought you were great.
You presented the case. You gave your thoughts, your red flags. I really like the way you did. You laid it all out there, and you just made it I thought it was objective. Jane,
yes,
always great to hear from you. And it's sage-like wisdom. It is.
I'll take that.
It comes from experience. All right. When we come back from the top of the hour news, Alan Borsuk is going to be here. He wrote an article recently for the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel on some things that we should be excited about and look to as far as shining examples of Milwaukee schools. We'll talk about what is the common thread between them. Does it just come down to money, or is there other leadership that has it something to do with what schools are doing well? And then we're going to have some fun. We're going to light it up. What are the worst TV decisions that you can remember? So we'll do that at 11:30. But stay tuned. There's going to be more in the next hour. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
From the smoke of a distant fire.
From the kennel to the coop, whatever the season, Fleet Farm has everything to keep your animals happy and healthy. From training your pup to sit season, to mastering those retrieval skills season. From clipping your horse for competition season, to keeping the backyard birds well-fed season. And of course, loving your pets like family season. There's a reason people say, if Fleet Farm doesn't have it, you don't need it. Because we have it all. Fleet Farm, built for real life.
Pursuing the truth wherever it may lead. The Todd Alba Show, weekday afternoons from 1 till 3. Join the conversation. Get involved. The Todd Alba Show on your local civic media radio station and on the app. You're listening to The Shaw, WAUK 540 AM Jackson, W266DR Waukesha, and always streaming on the Civic Media app.
This is CBS News on the Hour, presented by Indeed.com.
I'm Cammie McCormick. An escaped murderer caught in southeastern Pennsylvania. Searchers from the air used thermal imaging to direct police to Danilo Cavalcanti's location. Pennsylvania State Police Lieutenant Colonel George Bivens.
Tactical teams converged on the area where the heat source was. Cavalcanti did not realize he was surrounded until that had occurred. That did not stop him from trying to escape. He began to crawl through thick underbrush, taking his rifle with him. The dogs subdued him. He continued to resist, but was forcibly taken into custody.
Cavalcanti has been on the run for 2 weeks. He was in prison for killing his ex-girlfriend in 2021. A meeting in Siberia between the Russian and North Korean leaders raising concerns about possible military cooperation between the two. Reporter Alex Jensen has more from Seoul, South Korea.
Isolated heads of state bonding in the face of evil forces, as Kim Jong-un described them over dinner after his official summit with Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin, who suggested to local media we can expect military cooperation between the sides.
The U.S. has warned any weapons deal would violate UN sanctions. In Libya, the death toll from massive floods has now reached more than 5,000, and it's expected to rise further in the eastern city of Derna. Authorities are struggling to get aid to the coastal city. Most roads have been washed away. Correspondent Holly Williams.
Floodwaters smothered entire neighborhoods in brown silt.
Buildings were torn down. Their residents didn't stand a chance. Some streets were left carpeted in bodies. Mustafa Salem said he lost 30 family members in the inundation. People were asleep, he explained. No one was ready.
In Morocco, aid workers are beginning to filter in, but the earthquake damage there has wiped out roads. The quake on Friday killed nearly 3,000 people. More heavy rain could be in store for New England because of Hurricane Lee. Parts of Massachusetts are still recovering from nearly 10 inches of rain earlier this week. Consumer prices increased in August by the most in 14 months. Gasoline prices were one reason. Analyst Jill Schlesinger breaks down the numbers.
When we strip out food and energy, the core rate of inflation was up by 4.3% from a year ago. That's a good improvement from the previous month's 4.7% reading.
That potentially allows the Federal Reserve to keep interest rates unchanged next week. This is CBS News.
You need to hire fast and hire right? You need Indeed. Their all-in-one hiring platform helps you attract, interview, and hire candidates efficiently. Visit Indeed.com/credit. Your home for local news, weather, and sports across the airwaves and always streaming on the Civic Media app.
With news on WAUK The Shaw, I'm Stuart J. Waddles. A judge has ruled that Anessa Wire, one of the girls involved in the Slender Man case, is no longer required to wear a GPS tracker. She's complied with the conditions of her release from a state mental hospital 2 years ago. However, Wire still needs permission to leave Waukesha County. Wire was 12 years old at the time of the incident when she and Morgan Geyser stabbed their 12-year-old friend. Geyser remains in the state mental hospital and may get out next year. Developers have proposed replacing the former Boston store at Mayfair Mall with more than 900 apartments. Their plans involve 4 buildings, each with 15 stories. The entire project carries a price tag of $400 million. The exact financial contribution from the city of Wauwatosa remains unclear. With news on WAUK The Shaw, I'm Stuart J. Waddles.
When you're high, you feel different. You think different, you talk different, you draw different, you listen to music different, but you probably knew that. Problem is, you also drive different, and not in a good way. That's why driving high is illegal everywhere. So if you're high, just don't drive. Make a plan to get a sober ride. Because if you feel different, you drive different. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Don't let biased algorithms or degree screens or exclusive professional networks or stereotypes. Don't let anything keep you from discovering the half of the workforce who are stars. Workers skilled through alternative routes rather than a bachelor's degree. It's time to tear the paper ceiling and see the stars beyond it. Find out how you can make stars part of your talent strategy at tearthepaperceiling.org. Brought to you by Opportunity at Work and the Ad Council.
RPG came through the belly of the aircraft. We don't talk about the female combat wounded. These are our daughters and our sisters and our mothers. Wounded Warrior Project came into my life and taught me how to stand back up and get back in the fight. The truth is, I think we all have this strength inside of us, but until you're tested, you just don't know it's there.
See how Wounded Warrior Project empowers women veterans like Beth by visiting woundedwarriorproject.org/empowerwomenvets.
Thank you for listening to your local Civic Media radio station on air. Now join us anytime by finding and following our Twitter, Facebook, or Instagram pages. You'll also find social media.
Unrelentlessly positive.
Innovative. Innovative. Whatever.
It indicates.
Indicative?
Hey, can we focus?
Moving Wisconsin forward, one joke at a time. This is Kristen Bry with As Goes Wisconsin.
Yada, yada, yada.
Hello, Wisconsin!
Hello, Wisconsin. Welcome to the 11 o'clock hour of As Goes Wisconsin. I am your host, Kristen Bry. We got Jane Matnair on the board. We got Greg Bach here today. And our guest for this first half hour is none other than returning champion Alan Borsuk, who is a senior fellow at Marquette Law School and frequently still writes about education for the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel, where he was a veteran education journalist for a very long time. And we love to get his input on someone who has been reporting on schools and education in Wisconsin for most of your career. Is that a fair way to put it?
Dinosaurs roamed the earth when I started, I think.
And now you can, now they study about them. But so welcome back. How are you, sir?
I am good. I'm really pretty good. How are you? That's what I want to know.
I'm impatient. As far as we are officially 2 weeks away as of today, and I'm feeling good though. Feeling very good. Feeling very lucky as far as the I have not reached that point where it's like, get this baby out of me now. So I think that's a good thing. So I wanted to bring you on because so often I feel like, especially when it comes to Milwaukee schools, there's a lot of discontent as far as MPS and the current status of, failing schools, failing kids who are not reaching their potential. And, and I think, as you said in your most recent article, for all that has happened on the Milwaukee area education landscape in the last 35 years, great results have been delivered too infrequently. Mediocrity, or worse, has continued unchanged when it comes to results in many schools. But you highlighted in this same article some examples of schools that are doing really well. And so I wanted to bring you on to talk about some of those and then talk a little bit about what is the common thread between them. And so to start with, you started with Reagan High School, which is an MPS high school, right?
Yes. Not a charter school or anything. It's a part of the regular system.
And so what do you see Reagan doing that this was the first school that you listed as a great example?
Well, Reagan is about 20 years old now, 21 years old. It started out as part of a Bill Gates Foundation funded small high school initiative, which nationwide was regarded as not successful, but there are success stories. And one of the things that happened with Reagan is it started out small and they had a clear idea of what they wanted to do. They had very good leadership. They had a program that parents really wanted, which was an academic. They wanted the Rufus King of the South Side, is how one of them put it in the early days. They wanted a college prep school on the South Side to rival Rufus King on the North Side. And there was a market for it. They were doing what parents wanted, and that something that was good. So it began to grow. So suddenly it wasn't a small high school anymore. They're like have 1,300 students now. They're putting on a more than $10 million addition because they were so crowded. I mean, this is the most successful development in MPS in the last 20 years, and they earned it by being good. I mean, good at what they do.
And so with that, because I think out of the 4 schools that you listed, that's the only public school that is not either private or a voucher school, right? Or charter?
As it happened, I wasn't setting out to be sector sensitive, but and I've heard of a couple more examples. I may do a second column. I mean, there are 1,000 reasons to be worried and pessimistic and to, just throw up your hands. The state of kids in the city overall is certainly alarming, but there are things that are being done well. Among other things, we all ought to be learning from them.
And so one of the other schools that you was the Notre Dame School of Milwaukee. And so what stood out to you about that school?
I was looking for places in this particular column that are growing and that are taking new steps and have earned, in my opinion, the right, shall we say, to grow because they're doing a good job. So Notre Dame started out also as a small voucher school, Catholic school, 15 years ago, I think. Expanded to 2 buildings. Now they're expanding to a 3rd building. They've earned high marks in the state report cards. They just run a really good ship. Is it a school for everybody? No, it's definitely straight line Catholic school. They separate boys and girls at the early grades, but they do a good job and they're growing. Again, you know, in a parental choice world, which really applies to every sector of schools in town, parents, there's a market for this. Parents wanted good schools for their kids, and Notre Dame has earned a place as being listed as one of them.
And so as far as it being a barometer of who's doing well, it
Yeah.
becomes that's instead of neighborhood schools, it's where do you want to go and who's willing to drive across town to get you to that school.
And neighborhood schools is such an interesting question. We could have a whole separate discussion on kind of, I wouldn't say the death of neighborhood schools, but it's a very weak idea in Milwaukee, and it has been probably since the start of bus-oriented school desegregation in 1976.
Is it that long that it's not been that neighborhood schools has kind of been
I would
on
say
the
so.
decline in Milwaukee?
I've argued with no data to prove this, but I'd love if someone, I tried to come up with a way of saying this more firmly, that the neighborhood school impulse is weaker in Milwaukee than I suspect in any other city in the country.
Oh, wow.
I grew up, you went to your neighborhood school. Everyone knew that. I know there were occasional exceptions, but they were rare. Now, something like 35% of kindergarten through 8th grade kids in the city of Milwaukee go to their neighborhood school. It's way under half.
Wow. Well, and that's probably another topic for another day
Yeah,
as far as if that's a
that's
good
another
thing or a bad thing, but it is interesting. We're talking to Alan Borsuk, who is a senior fellow at Marquette Law School and frequently still writes about education for the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. And we're talking about some shining examples of schools that are doing it right or doing well in Milwaukee. And the next one, well, not technically Milwaukee, it is Cudahy, which is just south of Milwaukee. And I remember we talked about this previously because Cudahy, prior to any legislation being passed at the state level, was already making the switch to what we've talked about most of the times that you've come on the show, which is switching from whole language, right? The whole language reading method to phonics, which now is where the state's headed again, right?
Well, correct. And it's a little bit broader than phonics, but phonics is the signature aspect of it, what's called the science of reading. And Wisconsin became something like the 32nd state in the country to pass a science of reading law that had some bipartisan support, not a ton, but enough that Governor Evers signed it. That was part of his deal for allowing Milwaukee City and Milwaukee County to have a sales tax, was agreeing to some other changes, and the reading bill came along with it. But Cudahy was in on this early, and the reason I am big on Cudahy is that they really had fairly weak reading scores. It's a community that's not, like a rich suburban haven, very much working class. A lot of changes in the demographic makeup of Cudahy in the last 20 years. The thing that I like the best is, number one, they are taking constructive steps to deal with a problem. That's actually fairly rare in school life and deserves praise. And number two, they're well led. And number three, they appear to have their act together as far as everyone being on board. Teachers are supportive, parents are supportive, the school board's supportive, and the district leadership, of course, is supportive. So they're really working hard at it. And that sense of we need to do better and we're going to do it constructively, again, that's way too rare. And I'm impressed with how they've done on that.
And then the final school that I want to talk about, and then when we come back from the break, I want to talk about what you see as the common thread. Like, is it just money? Is it leadership? Is it bold ideas? And where you see within the confines of school districts and bureaucracy and everything, like what can other schools learn? But then the one that you actually wrote the most about in this article was OG Prep, which I mean, maybe it's because I don't have a kid of that age yet, but I had not heard of OG Prep previously.
Oh, really?
It seems like
Okay.
no. And so tell us more about that school.
Well, it's an amazing story, and whether you love it or hate it, and there's certainly people in both camps, it's controversial. Gus Ramirez, the founder, is controversial. He's the head of a Waukesha-based high-tech business called Husco. Obviously, made a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
driven by Gus and his family. They created the school only 6 years ago. They opened, so it's quite young still. It's grown very rapidly. It, as of this fall, is the largest single-site school in the Milwaukee area with about 1,800 students, pushing 1,900 students. It's going to grow some more. And they've had great success. Number one, attracting people. Number two, academic success. Number three, some of the things I look for in a school: stability in staff, stability in student enrollment, high attendance, and high scores on the state report card. They had 5-star scores the last 2 years of report cards. And what's some of the traits? Number one, strong leadership. Number two, clear ideas of what they're doing and clear attention to it. Number three, and I've talked with them about this, a willingness to look at what are our weak spots and how do we address them. You know, when we see there's a problem, 3rd grade math isn't going very well, what are we going to do about it? That kind of thing. Certainly they've had the benefit of money, because the Ramirez family particularly has poured tons of money into it. The first building they built was probably over $50 million. They opened a second building next door now that's almost $50 million. And they're taking over the Cardinal Stritch campus on the north side.
Oh, that's why I've heard that name before.
Which is a whole nother really ambitious idea that'll take years to unfold.
Well, we have to go to a break, so I want to keep talking about this on the other side of what you kind of see as the common thread. Like you said leadership, you said money, and what kind of schools can do with one, with the other, with both, with neither, to try to improve their standing. So our guest is Alan Borsuk. Come back after the break. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Deliver me from the days of old. Long live rock and roll. The beat of the drums loud and bold. Rock, rock, rock and roll. Feeling is there, body and soul.
Hey, this is Matt from Design Garden. Remember when the internet was new? Back then, you had to leave your house to start a business. Companies used to pay programmers bags of cash to get online. Now, small businesses can get online with a Facebook business page, or Squarespace, or Google My Business, or WordPress. But which tools should you use? Can you afford to go down the wrong path? Design Garden uses modern tools to build your website the right way. Find us online at design.garden. Again, that's design.garden.
Uh-oh, did a rock hit your windshield from that semi? Don't worry, Autoglass Now offers fast, reliable, and convenient service. For a limited time only, Autoglass Now is offering 50% off windshield replacement. Call your local Autoglass Now today for full details.
Love your hometown? Don't miss the Devil's Advocates radio show on the road for the very first Fall in Love Hometown Tour 2023.
But we're coming to a town near you all across the state of Wisconsin.
Mike and Dom kicking it all off in Wausau this Thursday starting at 4 p.m. Live from Bull Falls Radio, WXCO 1230 AM, 98.9 FM.
Road trip with the Devil's Advocates Fall in Love Hometown Tour 2023 on your local Civic Media radio station and the app.
You are never far away from your favorite local radio station. We're always streaming on TuneIn and the Civic Media app, and we invite you to get social with us by following our network's Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook pages. Want even more? civicmedia.us.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. A blend of clouds and sun this afternoon with highs around 64. Northeasterly winds 5 to 10 miles an hour. Partly cloudy skies again tonight. Lows dip down to about 47. Mainly clear tomorrow, high of 69. Mainly clear Friday with highs around 76. 70 chance for scattered storms Saturday. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Derek Height. Currently, it's 60. You wanna be a teacher's man? Well, baby, you just have to get it. Rock on your reason, rock on your rhyme. You better get me to school on time. Yeah! Yeah!
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. I am Kristen Bry, along with Greg Bach and Jane Matnair, and we are talking to Alan Borsuk, who is a senior fellow at Marquette Law School and writes about education for the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel. And we're talking about what schools are in, at least in the Milwaukee area, are really doing well. They're growing. Their tests are good. The grades are good. The achievement levels are good. And we talked through some of the highlights of the schools that you had written about in your most recent article. But I kind of want to talk about what you see as the common thread. And I guess the first question is, how much, because there's so much talk about money when it comes to school funding. There is obviously, do public schools have enough? There is still anger from some as far as how much voucher schools are now going to get in this new budget. But how much do you feel like successful schools need to have adequate, or if not more money to be successful?
It's not a simple question.
Okay.
You'd like to make it a simple question, but there's so much evidence from around the nation that, and around here as well, that you can spend a lot more money and get not very good results. So there's more to it than just money. Do schools need money? Yes. Do schools, especially at the moment, the public schools, are they being stretched and stressed? Absolutely. Did they do well in the state budget? No, not really. The voucher and charter schools did way better in this budget. And the balance of power and initiative and energy between the sectors is changing in a way that is much more attractive to the non-traditional public schools. So that's all. It does all involve money. But if you're looking for success, you got to have more than money. You have to have resources. That's a fact. A sense of limited satisfaction constantly, that you can't just rest on your laurels, even if you're doing pretty well. And that's fairly rare. A sense of, let's address our problems effectively. That's a really important trait. A sense of not putting up with mediocrity, which too many schools kind of say, oh, well, we made it through today. Strong teachers, strong principals of school leaders, I mean, for principals as far as ideals also, a real focus on the facts of whether are our kids doing as well as they ought to, and what are we going to do about it. These are intangibles, but if you talk about AUG Prep, they got lots of money.
Yeah.
And that's a really good thing. But they also have that strong, competent leadership and that sense of, how do we do better? How do we connect with kids? How do we get students on the paths to success? What help do they need, including intangibles like social emotional stuff? It's not just about learning the reading and math and science. So that the intangibles are also really important. I could name schools around here where you give them a ton more money and you're not going to get any better results.
And is that, because I think that's kind of the question, as far as when we think about some of the voucher schools, charter schools that don't have the bureaucracy of the school district, how much, having never worked in education, and only reading things from the outside, how much handcuffs do MPS leaders, as far as principals of individual schools, how much leeway do they have to really take charge and turn their school around, versus things that are kind of school district wide that are just hard to overcome? Another hard question.
Yeah, no, well, there's no one answer. And in different periods, there's been different results. That at times there's been a much looser central control, and at times there's been much more restrictive central control. These days, I think school principals don't have as much freedom to pick their programs and to lead, to be a maverick as in some prior eras. Frequently, it's been the mavericks who ran the best schools in MPS. Going back 25 or 30 years ago, there are not very many mavericks in that system now. Frankly, if you're a maverick, you go somewhere else. There's been times, and we're kind of in that now, where every school is expected to be on the same page in the same textbook, every day, and that has advantages in that, but it does sort of sap creativity and drive for a lot of employees. It's a big battleship, and getting it to change directions is not easy. That's just one of their many problems, unfortunately.
So I guess with the 2 minutes that we have left, I guess, what are you looking forward to, not only with these like certain schools that are doing well, but knowing, like we said, there's a new budget, there's new reading legislation. Like, what are you looking for and things that you're looking forward to writing about in this upcoming school year?
Well, that's a good question. I have cut back, I should say, on how much I'm writing for the newspaper, just because I'm old and cranky and worn down. The balance of power between the non-MPS or non-public school sectors and the public school sectors is really important to watch. As things evolve with the new reading law, that's important to watch. The whole politics, especially in the suburbs, the politics of what's going on, and issues that are important and valuable, but nonetheless, oftentimes not really central to how kids are doing in school. I wish parents and teachers and everybody was focused more on how do we get better outcomes for our kids. So those are the kind of things I'm watching.
Some little things, just
Yeah.
little details.
But those are also often the ones that school districts don't focus on that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, Alan Borsuk, always a delight to have you here. I will see you when I get back from maternity leave. Jane and Greg will probably have you back while I'm gone, but
I'm
have a
eager to be
great
helpful.
day and always appreciate having you here. We're going to take a break. When we come back, what are the worst mistakes in television history? We want to hear from you. 844-967-2789. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Broadcasting to Waukesha at 101.1 FM. Broadcasting to Southeast Wisconsin at 540 AM. This is The Shaw, WAUK.
CBS News Update. Escaped murderer Danilo Cavalcanti has been captured in southeastern Pennsylvania 2 weeks after he escaped from jail. Surveillance aircraft picked up his heat signal early this morning, and search teams with dogs moved in to capture him. State Police Lieutenant Colonel George Bivens.
The dog subdued him. He continued to resist, but was forcibly taken into custody. No one was injured as a result of that. He did sustain a minor bite wound.
A meeting in Siberia between the leaders of Russia and North Korea. The U.S. and its allies are watching closely to see if a weapons deal is made for Moscow's war on Ukraine. Correspondent Imtiaz Tayeb.
Whatever is eventually agreed between Kim and Russia, it's not likely to change the overall trajectory of the war here in Ukraine, but it will isolate these two already extremely volatile countries even further.
Consumer prices increased in August at their highest rate in 14 months. CBS News Update. I'm Cammy McCormick.
Thanks for listening to your local Civic Media radio station. Learn more on our website, civicmedia.us.
With news on WAUK The Shaw, I'm Stuart J. Waddles. What to do with the domes? Milwaukee County supervisors are expressing concern about the costs of fixing up the Mitchell Park domes. Recent options given to leaders include a $67 million complete restoration of all of the domes. There's a $22 million option for simple repairs and a $5 million option to demolish them. One county board supervisor says that the high costs of repair or reconstruction may lead to the eventual decision to demolish them. Payments made to Waukesha Metro can now come from your phone. The transit system has launched a new fare collection system called Wisco. It offers multiple payment options, including credit cards, debit cards, Apple Pay, and Google Pay. The new system provides smoother transfers to regional transit options like the Milwaukee County Transit System. With news on WAUK The Shaw, I'm Stuart J. Waddles.
The Maggie Dawn Show.
All of these things consistently come down to this willingness of people to give up their agency and the willingness of Donald Trump and those who support him to leverage and abuse people's trust in them to further their own personal power and enrichment.
The Maggie Dawn Show, weeknights at 6 p.m. on your local Civic Media radio station and on the Civic Media app.
Fritos, Cheetos, Doritos. We should expect that stuff to be safe. Why does it make sense that corporations can poison the American people and we don't even know about it? Politically, there is a group who chooses to make sure that there are not enough dollars put into the Food and Drug Administration to check on these types of things.
The Earl Ingram Show, weekday mornings 8 to 10 on your local Civic Media radio station and on the app. The Devil's Advocates radio show.
100 degrees. Ramaswamy literally said global climate change, human affected climate change is a hoax.
Ron DeSantis effectively pivoted on the debate stage, said, I'm not going to answer your damn question because it will expose us as climate change denialists, which puts them in a minority, certainly with younger voters. Young people care about the future of this world, Don.
The Devil's Advocates radio show, weekday afternoons from 4 until 6 on your local Civic Media radio station and on the app. Up North News Radio with Pat Kreitlow, Wisconsin's home for daily conversations about the state's latest headlines and stories. Weekday mornings.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, Schlemiel, Schlemazel, Hasenkamp Incorporated. We're gonna do it. Give us any chance, we'll take it. Read us any rule, we'll break it. We're gonna make our dreams come true. Doing it our way. Nothing's gonna turn us back now. Straight ahead and on the track now.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. I am Kristen Bry. Jane Nair is on the board. Greg Bach is here. And let's get away from the politics. Let's get away from schools. Let's have some fun and talk about the worst decisions in TV history.
So this article came across my viewing eyes. The 50 worst decisions made in television. An article posted by Rolling Stone, and it basically goes through the top 50 worst decisions ever made in television. I scrolled through it, and what I thought I would do is I'd start with one. I'm not going to do all 50, of course, because 50, that's a long time. That's a whole show.
It's time.
Yeah, because time.
Yeah, the time thing.
But all I did was from the 50th, I looked at the one that hit my eyes, the first one, and that was number 49, which was America's Next Top Model asked contestants to swap ethnicities.
What year did that happen in?
It wasn't the 20s, or the 2020s. So it's exactly what it sounds like. In 2005, the contestants were asked to swap ethnicities, which meant that some of the white models wore blackface and others changed their skin tone, wore wigs, as if to look like if they were Native American, Hawaiian, or Latinx. This, of course, it says here took place in social media. I think Facebook was probably the only one. We weren't about like what we're on now. That mean this would get a person fired for even.
Oh, for sure.
Oh, this would never happen now. Because also on America's Next Top Model, didn't Tyra Banks put on I think that was her talk show.
Her talk show. She put on a fat suit.
She put on a fat suit and existed as a fat person, and it was supposed to be very revelatory.
Yeah, and people were like, "Are you Tyra Banks?" No, I'm not. And she says she has defended the move in recent years. She didn't want to do blackface, but she wanted to see how people would deal with being a degraded race. And I'm like,
is that the term she used? Was a degraded race?
Let's see here. She said, degraded my race. Sorry, degraded my race. But yeah, it's still just take the L, Tyra. Just take the L. And you know what I'll do is I won't go into big explanation on some of them, but I'll just say this. Don't forget, folks, that the Geico Cavemen commercials got their own TV show at one point, got canceled in less than one season. That was pretty cool.
I completely forgot about that.
Yeah.
That's what, in going through this list, how many I was like, I don't remember that happened. But we would love to hear from you of what sticks out to you as really bad TV decisions, either because it was like, ooh, that did not age well, or because the studio or the network lost a ton of money. 844-967-2789. And I think we got Joe from Appleton on the phone.
Hey, Joe.
Hello, lovely people. Greg.
So good morning. Joe, what do you think is the worst TV decision in history?
I tell you this, my wife and I were very big fans of How I Met Your Mother. I think in many ways it was a spiritual successor to Seinfeld. That's a whole nother discussion. But I tell you this, it started to wane in later seasons, but most shows do. But then it gets to the last season. They completely changed the setting from New York to some resort in New England. They changed the format, so the whole season, 20 some odd episodes, takes place over one weekend. And I mean, that just totally threw off the game, what it had been used to so far. Then they get to the season finale. I'm thinking, all right, this better pay off. And I think with the season finale, or the series finale for How I Met Your Mother, the writers just gathered in a room and said, hey, you know what would be funny? If we did the equivalent of grabbing our audience by their big dumb faces and screaming, F you! Because they undid everything. They undid everything that they had set up to that point, pulled the rug out from under everybody's feet, and everybody hated it. Now, I can usually go back and watch old shows that kind of fell off and enjoy the good times. But with this, it was so bad, it spoiled the entire series, such that now when I see a rerun come on, all I can think of is, oh, you monsters. The seventh layer of hell is reserved for thee.
Boy, Joe, don't get dramatic or anything.
I get passionate about certain
So
things.
I have to ask then, because the other show that always pops up for me, the other missed, botched endings. I feel like I wasn't a Lost fan, but how Lost ended always gets listed as a terrible ending. And that's on this top 50 list. And then the other one is the entire season, entire last season of Game of Thrones. So do you have strong feelings about those, Joe?
I never watched Lost. I haven't kept up with Game of Thrones. I do hear that there are some, albeit a small minority, of defenders of the Lost season finale. I've not heard one person say How I Met Your Mother ended fine. And if they do meet that person, I know they're an alien.
All right. Thanks so much for the call, Joe. But that's what I think is interesting. Greg, did you watch Lost?
I watched the first season. I watched the first 2 episodes I was dating a woman at the time. She's like, please just watch Lost with me. I thought, all right, I'll watch the pilot. And the pilot was 2 episodes. And as soon as it was done, I was like, thank you. I'm done with this now.
You're like, I'm not interested. Was it the fantasy stuff, or why didn't you get into it?
No interest whatsoever. And here I will say this. My sister is a fervent, diehard defender of everything Lost, to the point where one time I was going to say something about Lost, just in hey, I watched it, whatever. I wasn't going to criticize it. And she jumped at me. She's like, don't you ever say anything bad about Lost, or I'll make fun of Doctor Who. I'm like, I wasn't going to make fun of it. I just didn't care. There are fervent defenders of that show.
And I loved the show until they ruined it with the end. And even the last season, and it was very confusing and very convoluted to begin with. But the last season was all over the place, and the finale didn't answer so many intrinsic questions that had been part of the series from the beginning. Anybody who knows what smoke monster means will understand what I'm talking about.
Well, here's a question I have for the both of you. Do y'all remember a little show called Cop Rock?
Oh,
I don't.
Yeah,
I have no idea what Cop
I'll
Rock
give you a
is.
very quick overview. Legendary show creator Stephen Bochco wanted to make a Hill Street Blues into a Broadway musical. Everyone said no, so he said, you know what? I'm just going to make a cop show where throughout the show there are full dance and singing numbers based on various things that go on in a cop's life. It is so awful. There is a song where a guy sings about how he can kidnap you a child. Yeah, it's ridiculous. The show was like, basically it got canceled as the first episode was being aired because they realized how hard they had failed on this one.
So wait, but was it Steven Bochco? I'm reading this right now.
Yes.
So it was
Yes.
Oh, like so it went like it was a real hard left turn into
Yeah. Oh yeah. He's like, I just want everyone to dance.
Man, I don't remember that show at all, but that is really funny. We're talking about the worst TV decisions of all time. Could it be shows that were created, shows that were canceled, people that were fired, botched endings? 844-967-2789. We got Carmela from Milwaukee on the phone. Carmela, what is the worst TV decision of all time?
It has to be Game of Thrones.
The ending, the last
whole
season?
last season. Yeah, just everything. Bran King, and just a couple episodes before he was named king, he's like, I can hold no titles, and and then all of a sudden he's like, why do you think I came all this way to be crowned king? It was just so ridiculous, the whole last season. There were so many more.
I have to agree with you as far as like the investment of millions of people for well over basically over a decade, right? And like the intricacy and the details for so many seasons, and then like, let's just wrap it up. We're over this. And it's like how the last season felt.
Yeah, those two guys should.
Yeah, and I guess HBO offered to go longer so they could wrap it up, but the showrunners are the ones who decided, no, let's just kind of do it here.
The only thing I'm sorry, Carmela. The only good thing about the last season of Game of Thrones was I liked that the youngest daughter killed the Ice King.
But that whole war should have been a whole season.
Yeah, the whole war could have been a whole season.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then it did come out of nowhere. They were setting it up that it would most likely be somebody else, probably Jon Snow, and then she came out of nowhere. So I enjoyed that it was her, but at the same time, I was still kind of like, what? Wait.
But also,
So
and also
every
like,
time I see it-
I know, and the like
Go
the
ahead.
fast development of Daenerys and the Mad Queen. It's like that was like you loved her for like 7 seasons until all of a sudden you're supposed to not love her. Like I totally agree with you, Carmela.
Yeah.
It just made me mad, and then she got that look, and then she just destroyed the whole city, and she's talking about breaking the wheel, and then they turned it, and I was like, no. Every time I do rewatch it, and it makes me mad every time.
All right, thanks so much for the call, Carmela. I have to agree with you that is up there, especially because there were so many people invested in it that were let down. Let's go to Charles in Green Bay. Charles, what was the worst TV decision of all time?
Putting on Housewives of Anywhere.
Yay, Charles! Yay!
Housewives of New York, or Housewives of Dallas, or Housewives of Podang Junction, or Housewives of Poughkeepsie, or whatever. Why do we give a damn about their show? Why do we give a darn about what's going on with their life? The other fact of the matter is Keeping Up with the Kardashians. That one should have been canceled before it even got started.
I know Jane agrees with that one.
But the thing is that
I'm sorry, but Jane and I are in the mode of sarcasm today.
Charles, Charles, I'm in the mode of sarcasm every day. But you and I and Cindy are going to have to get together and go drinking because I think we'd have a ball.
Go drink it in the Fox Valley, Appleton, Green Bay.
Absolutely.
Thanks for the call, Charles.
Yep, bye.
Oh, bye. Sorry, I couldn't hear him. Greg, what were you gonna say?
Oh, I was just gonna say. I mean, while those are terrible shows, those shows made billions of dollars, so those aren't going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, quality doesn't necessarily popularity does not equate. Popularity does not equate quality.
But speaking of billions of dollars and billions of dollars lost, this
Can we
is
say
kind
the
of
same time?
Well, I'm going to say the fact that this is like super. I think it's top 10 on the list, but the fact that NBC canceled Baywatch after the first season. Talk about a bad business decision. That's on this list. And if you think about the millions, if not billions of dollars Baywatch has made since, But the fact that NBC had it for the first season and then we're like, nah.
Well, we're fine.
pass.
I was going to say my $1 billion thing was when they launched Quibi in 2020.
What was Quibi?
But that's the
Exactly.
thing. I didn't even want to bring it up because I knew so many people. It was such a failure to launch that like I was living in Los Angeles at the time and I was like trying to actively get a meeting with Quibi executives to try to pitch a show, but I was not famous. So they weren't taking anyone who wasn't already famous
Yeah.
because they had Chrissy Teigen. Like every celebrity had these like 10-minute shows lined up that Quibi was going to be the next big thing. And then, and it was basically, literally they were going to launch, the pandemic happened and TikTok started and everyone's like, oh, here's a bunch of free content I can get on my phone.
Oh,
Why would
wow.
I subscribe and pay for 10-minute episodes? And it just literally, what was it, Greg? 1.75 billion?
1.75 billion. It started in April and ended in December, the same of 2020. But I was also going to lump that in with CNN Plus, which launched and canceled and went away within a month. I mean, it was crazy how much money was spent on these things, and they're gone.
All right. Well, we got to take a break, but 844-967-2789. What are the worst TV decisions of all time? We'll come back with your texts and your calls, and we'll also let you know who's at the Laughing Tap this weekend. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
Nothing's gonna turn us back now. Straight ahead and on the track now. We're gonna make our dreams come true. Turn it our way. There's nothing we won't try. Never heard the word.
Direct from the Dairy State, it's Sharp Cheddar Weekends, a 3-hour block of Wisconsin-produced radio, Saturdays and Sundays from 11 a.m. till 2 p.m., featuring Raised in Wisco with Joel Clayfish and Danielle Fairman, The Cripes Cast with Charlie Behrens, and Under the Helmet with the Gravedigger, Gilbert Brown. You can enjoy it by the slice or enjoy the whole darn thing. Sharp Cheddar Weekends is radio so fresh, it squeaks. Listen in on the Civic Media Station or on the app. As Goes Wisconsin with Kristen Brock.
I didn't realize that Tucker Carlson's like hemorrhaging viewers. I heard yesterday someone was like, oh yeah, like no one's actually watching it anymore. I was like, oh, yeah, that doesn't really surprise me. It's kind of like Threads.
It was a thing for about 5
a
minutes.
week. Everyone was excited, and then they moved on.
Well, it's like Scott Walker's presidential campaign. It's a big deal for about a week.
As Goes Wisconsin with host Kristen Bry. Weekdays 10 till noon on your local Civic Media radio station and on the Civic Media app. Radio keeps your community informed, entertained, and connected. It's what we're all about at the Civic Media network of local radio stations.
We're having fun and moving fast to preserve hometown radio across Wisconsin. This includes a commitment to news. Now we want to invite you to join Civic Media's exclusive Facebook group, Wisconsin Breaking News. It's a place to share your community's news and chat with others from across the state about it.
Join the Facebook group Wisconsin Breaking News today. It's the perfect companion to your local Civic Media radio station.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. Partly cloudy skies this afternoon with daytime highs approaching 64. Northeasterly winds 5 to 10 miles an hour. Lows around 47 tonight. Highs level off around 69. Tomorrow, mainly clear skies. Mid-70s Friday, cooler Saturday with highs in the upper 60s and thunderstorms possible. For Civic Media,
Make 'em laugh, make 'em laugh. Don't you know everyone wants to laugh? My dad said be an actor, my son, but be a comical one. They'll be standing in lines for those old hunky
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. I am Kristen Bry, along with Jane Matnair and Greg Bach, and we've been talking about the worst TV decisions of all time, according to we saw this from Rolling Stone printed a piece about this, but we've also been taking your calls and texts on what you think is the worst TV decision of all time.
Charles from Green Bay called back and he wanted to add Fox News parting way with Tucker Carlson.
Is the worst decision of all time?
Well, I mean, certainly.
I disagree with that.
But their ratings took a big hit when he left.
I haven't.
But it was great for us.
Well, and it's just the whole landscape. But what would you say as far as what do you did you? We'll end on this. Do you agree with what number one was on the list?
Let me see here. My computer is not loading well in this article because it's a very long page. Yeah, no, I don't agree with this. Well, so number one is NBC cancels Freaks and Geeks. It was a beloved show. It was an underground show. This is not number one to me.
Because I agree
all.
with you, because I think their number two should have been number one.
Yeah, and their number two is NBC turns Donald Trump into a television titan, which, yeah.
Absolutely.
That I think has a much more grander impact on the scope of history than Freaks and Geeks getting canceled.
Absolutely. But the one I did notice, number 8, which is HBO, TNT, Showtime, FX, all turned down Breaking Bad.
Wow.
I mean, you just have to imagine being the person who says, it's like the person at Decca Records is like, yeah, we don't want the Beatles. We're fine. The Guitar Rock is going out. It's fine. They won't be anywhere in a year.
We do have a couple texts as well. Mark from the SAC, Fox's cancellation of Firefly. Another one coming in from the 608. Worst TV decision, Fox canceling Firefly before all episodes had aired out of order. Another one for Firefly. And then
wow. I need to watch this show, or maybe not, because I won't be satisfied, apparently.
It's a really good show.
And then, fun fact, Sheryl Crow sang a song on Cop Rock. We recently found it on YouTube. I'll have to see if I can find it, and I'll pull that for tomorrow.
Sheryl Crow sang on Crop Rock. Well, some of the other ones I thought were interesting is when Norm Macdonald got fired from SNL, but also David Spade and Chris Farley getting fired from SNL.
Mhm.
Chris Farley, I didn't realize they had fired him.
Yeah, they fired all three of them because they were just getting too big, too much money. Chevy Chase gets his own talk show that last 6 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, these are the one that broke my heart the most is the people who played the Ropers on Three's Company got their own spinoff. And there was a thing in their contract saying if the show didn't last a season, they could come back. But when they left, they introduced Don Knotts' character, and the Roper show lasted a year and a half. So when it got canceled, they weren't allowed to come back, and they lost their jobs. That's just some nasty Hollywood stuff, in my opinion.
Welcome to the entertainment business.
Yep.
Well, that was super fun. I will link the article from Rolling Stone to today's show notes, so you can go check out and see which ones you agree with, which ones you forgot about, and which ones you think should have been on there, or what order. But that was super fun, and also super fun is going to the Laughing Tap.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, some comedy, right?
Stab comedy. I'll stab comedy with you. And if you stab comedy this weekend, you might see Dan Schaefer, because Dan Schaefer told me he's coming to a show this weekend. So yeah, baby.
So fun.
But we have Louis Katz coming to the Tap for 5 shows. Thursday, 2 Saturday, 2 Friday. Tickets are available, laughingtap.com. Very funny New York comic coming all the way out here. Finally get to see him. Very excited to see him. Jamie, got a clip?
We do.
I had this hippie roommate for a while. Her name was Juggle Sticks. She was super annoying. She insisted everything she bought had to be organic. She actually used, instead of a regular chemical-based deodorant, she used a crystal for deodorant. Anyone heard this before? Yeah? Yeah, you know how it works? Yeah, doesn't, all right? She stunk, right? The crystal didn't summon some kind of bio fairy who magically made her pit smell like rainbows. She was a vegetarian who magically smelled like lamb shawarma, okay? It was disgusting. And it made me hungry. Freaked me out. One day, Juggle Sticks found a cat in the dumpster, brought him home, named him Dave Meowthews.
So yeah, Louis will be here 5 shows at the Laughing Tap. Thursday, 2 Saturday, 2 Friday, laughingtap.com.
Nice. Tickets are a steal.
$20, no drink minimum. And then also, if you can't come to those shows, Sunday, Keg Stand-Up returns to Lakefront Brewery. That show is 6:30. There's a full menu before the show. Got 4 great comics from the region, Milwaukee and Chicago comics coming through for the Keg Stand-Up show. Those tickets are available at milwaukeecomedy.com. That's our other company. And then finally, if you love comedy and if you want to meet me how Kristen Bry and I met years ago, you can volunteer for the Milwaukee Comedy Festival. We're looking for volunteers right now. Volunteers get to come to shows. It's not a lot of work, just helping out. You might be asked to drive. If you have a car, that'd be great because we have people doing things like running some errands if we need it. But go to mkecomedyfest.com/volunteers. Also, volunteers link is on the front page of mkecomedyfest.com.
That's an awesome idea and a great way to meet people and make some friends and check out the comedy scene in Milwaukee. That's terrific.
Yeah.
I would highly, not just because I got a friendship out of it, but as far as volunteer gigs go, you like basically collect tickets and you tell people where to go if they're coming into like the Dandy or something like that, because you got to go sneak through the back. And but you get to see a free comedy show, you get to meet new people. It is very fun. I would highly recommend volunteering. It's like the people who couldn't get a Taylor Swift concert ticket, so then they just got jobs as security guards at stadiums. It's like basically the same thing.
Exactly. With less teenage girls.
Yes.
So,
exactly.
we got lots of stuff happening, and come on down, high five, and it'll be awesome.
All right. Well, a little bit of a rough start today, but we made it through. I think.
Do you know why? Because we're professionals.
We are professionals, specifically Jane.
Well, and we have a team. We have a team of engineers, and everybody pitches in when things go awry. So thanks for everybody's help today, including Calvin and everybody.
Yes,
Casper and Corey and Drew and Brian and everyone.
And thank you to everyone at home who let us know that, hey, something's wrong.
We can't hear
I would have kept just talking, and everyone would have been like, "Why is there no talking on the air?" So
Jane and Greg are having a weird conversation.
Yeah. So thank you so much for everyone who called in and texted today. Thank you to Alan Borsuk. Thank you, Greg Bach. Thank you, Jane Madnair. We will be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. We got a new public service announcement. Paul Noonan will be here. So yeah, come back tomorrow, 10 a.m. This has been As Goes Wisconsin.
Don't you know everyone?